Hey guys, we will get started here in just a minute. And yet, I will start off by saying I'd love to see everybody's faces because it is a participatory class. So if you guys can take yourselves off of hidden mode and feel free to take yourselves off of mute mode because I do love to talk to people while I'm teaching. So I'd love for you guys to do that. Hello, Pamela.
Hi.
So, are you a newer agent? What made you join the class today?
Newer kind of, sort of.
Okay.
I've been an agent for for about a year and a half with Keller Williams, but when pandemic hit and all the rest of this kind of stuff went on, it kind of put me in shutdown mode. And so now I'm trying to get back and learn what I need to be doing so I can be productive.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So I see a few other people are taking themselves off. Thank you guys. So feel free to introduce yourselves because probably most people here you're not going to know. So we'd love to hear from you. I see James there. He took himself off of mute. Do you want to say hi, James?
Mm-hmm. I just realized my throat was really dry.
Oh.
So I'm James. I'm not new. I was at the Tampa Properties office for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
And then I just started doing it part-time. So I just went to a different brokerage for 2 years. And then now I want to do it full-time again. So I came back.
Awesome. What office are you with now, James?
Tampa Properties again.
Okay. Awesome.
But this time I'm on the Griffin group. So I'm on a team this time.
Oh, I love Christina. Yeah. So you're with a good group of people. I really don't know her other agents, but I know her. So yeah. That's awesome. So what are you guys hoping to get out of the class today? Because I want to make sure I cover any issues that you guys are running into and make sure you guys walk out of here with actual useful knowledge and that you can do something with it. So who has anything that they wanted to get out of today?
So I've used RPR historically to do my CMAs. And I was just curious if you were doing anything different, or if you were using RPR, is there any way to make it a little bit better? Like I don't go in and do those individual adjustments to comps. So I just kind of wanted to see how you were doing it. Yeah.
So that's great. We're going to cover that because I actually love RPR. And that's generally what I do a lot of mine in. However, I use the MLS to find other data sometimes, and then just plug it right into RPR. I just think that the RPR looks good. So whether you have a buyer or seller, it's easier for them to understand than just a sheet of comps that are just numbers and letters. Yeah. I just find that sometimes hard for other people to understand that aren't real estate agents. So I just like to have more of a visual one for people who like that. So yeah. How about anybody else? What are you guys here to learn? Are you guys running into any issues that you want to make sure that I cover today?
I'm brand new, so I don't even know how to make a CMA.
Okay. Danielle, do you know what a CMA is?
Yes, a comparative market analysis. Yep.
Okay. So
I made one, so I saw it on the training calendar today. So that's a good one to go to.
Well, great. Well, welcome and welcome to KW. What office are you with, Danielle?
I'm with Tampa Properties.
Okay.
But I'm a full-time teacher, so it's hard for me to make most of the training. So I saw this one was at 3 o'clock today. So I was like, yes.
You can snag it. Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. So nobody else seems to be screaming out at me yet. I just want to let you guys know, you guys have a question. You don't have to raise your hand. Just unmute yourself, shout it out. Let's get the questions out there. Because if you have the question, somebody else in the class probably does too. So I just want to start out introducing myself. So I'm Tisa Dixon. I am over at the Clearwater office. So I'm also your Keller Williams Professionals president. So if any of you guys are under the age of 40, or if you have a team and have team members that might be under the age of 40, I'd love to talk to you about that because there's some phenomenal opportunities right now with our group. I have been in real estate for 15 years. I've been with Keller Williams about 4 years. So I do teach a lot of trainings. So I might have seen some of you guys before, maybe not. But the thing I love about doing CMAs and teaching a CMA class is I swear every single person does it differently. And that doesn't mean anybody's right or they're wrong. It is just what it is. So every time you see anybody else teaching a CMA class, I always welcome everybody to take any that they see, because you're going to pick up different tidbits from each person doing it. And that's what's great about it. And then you're going to develop your own style for doing the CMAs and how to use them. So before we get started, I just want to talk quickly about the benefits, right? So there's benefits on both sides. So if I have a seller, the reason, and we're going to go through how I do a seller one and how I do a buyer one. Yet if I have a seller and I just go in there and they tell me what price they want, is it going to be accurate? Is it going to appraise? Is the market going to accept the price? Who knows? That's why, because if you don't have the data, if you don't put together the data for when you're going to a listing appointment, you have no idea. You're not setting yourself up for success, and you're not setting the sellers up for success. So make sure that every single one you do, it doesn't matter if it's your buddy, your friend, they've already looked at their Zestimate on Zillow and they know what they want to list their house at. None of that matters. Make sure you always do the full process for everyone, because even if you decide to get a listing that they're not going with your pricing strategy, at least you gave them the data and you can back it up later. And for the buy side, obviously, when we're doing those, in this market, some people aren't doing them anymore. People have just stopped doing CMAs for their buyers. And what's happening, we all see it, places aren't appraising. And so if you don't go in there telling your client, even if you have somebody offer over asking and their offer gets accepted, you guys are under contract, you might feel a little silly having to go back to your buyer and say the house didn't appraise and it's $20,000 off, right? So they might be okay with that, and they might come to the table with money, or the seller might come to the table with money. And yet, if you didn't give them that info up front, you're not doing your job as an agent. So of course, there's times when appraisers are just wrong. And yet make sure that they know, make sure you have your comps. Because I'll tell you, like right now, I'm going through, not sure if any of you guys know what Tidewater is. When you have a VA client, the house didn't appraise, instead of just saying, hey, didn't appraise at value, we go into Tidewater, which means that the listing agent gets to provide comps right to the appraiser, because he can't find enough data to support the price. So with that, I went to the listing agent and said, hey, listing agent, what comps did you use when you priced the property? She didn't have any comps. And I had my comps from before, and they were lower. My client knew that they were overpaying for the house by $10,000. They knew this in the beginning. And so I at least still had my comps, could go back. I sent them over to her so that she could go review them and see if there was anything better in the market, so that she could submit that to the appraiser. So it's key to keep the comps that you're doing and making sure that your client is aware, whether they go with the price, they want to bid under it, whatever the thing is, make sure that you're providing those to your clients. So that's what I think is super important. And so I am going to go through, let's see, one second. I'm going to share my screen, guys. So give me just one moment. Oh, there we go. Okay. So one second, let me move some things around. So when doing a CMA, we talked about RPR. Do you guys know, everyone here, I just want to make sure, has access to the MLS, right? We're not that new that we don't have it, right? Okay, awesome. So let's log into the MLS. Move that out of the way. So when we go into the MLS, it's great. You obviously know, we click here, we can go to the listings. Right here is remind, where is my RPR? Where do we keep RPR? Oh, I think it's right here now. I have mine bookmarked at the top You can see RPR right here. Just trying to show you guys how to get to it. So once you click through your main page, then if you come over to the external links, then you can have RPR login. And so we're going to go through a couple of different ways on what we're going to be doing with these. And yet this is one of the ways. Does anybody
Tisha,
have-
can you,
Mhm.
Tisha, excuse me, could you
Yeah.
please tell me from the main page, I didn't see the widget or whatever it's called for RPR.
So from here, we're just going to
Uh-huh.
click on matrix,
Okay,
and then yours might look slightly different, but then you should have an external links.
okay,
You
got
see
it.
that? And then RPR.
There's an icon for it too. You don't have to go through Matrix.
Oh, okay. So where's the icon, Adam?
All the way to the right-hand side and scroll down some. Right there, where
Oh.
it says association receipt, yeah, right there.
Right there. Thank you. Awesome. So you can go
Okay,
right
got
there.
it. Thank you.
Also, just bookmark it so that you guys always have it and so that it's really quick to get to. Because I always use this multiple times a day when looking at properties. Does anybody have a property that they're either thinking about listing or that they have a buyer that they're working with?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What's the address of it?
It's 14333 Birch Street, Hudson, Florida.
Okay. So, I mean, and this is meant for you guys. Play along, go along with us and see what you guys are going to find too. So what is this property? Are you going to list it or do you have a buyer that wants to make an offer?
List it.
Okay, awesome. So let's go through a real life scenario of what you're going to do with this property, right? So here's the property. You guys saw that I typed in the address. So hold on, I'm going to copy this so I don't lose the address. So when you're on the home page, just go ahead, type in whatever the address is. And then it's going to pull up the property information. So historical photos. So if it's been listed in the MLS before, it's going to have historical photos. So this one has been, but this was from 3 years ago, it looks like. So when you're going to go list it, you might have already talked to the seller and know that maybe they did upgrades, maybe they did this, maybe they didn't. So if you know they didn't do anything, that this is basically what the house is going to look like, because this is only 3 years ago. So the cabinets and counters look fairly new. But by looking at these, we get an idea of when we're going to look at the comps, what kind of, condition that the property's really in. And this person.
It's been renovated, so the bathrooms are completely new.
Okay, so all the bathrooms are new. And how about the kitchen?
The kitchen is the same.
Okay, the kitchen is the same and new bathrooms.
Brand
Okay,
new bathrooms.
awesome.
And office was added.
And an office was added, is that what you said?
Yeah, part of the garage was used to create an office.
Okay. So do you know offhand if that was put into the public records, if that was inspected, are they going to count that as new square footage?
I don't know.
Okay. So
When it was refinanced, it was counted as square footage because they can no longer count the garage as a garage.
Okay. So during this, we may make a few assumptions, and that's what you do when going on a listing appointment. You have to make a few assumptions because you haven't been in the house yet, most likely, right? So we're going to take this property, which looks very nice on Birch Street, and what we're going to do is go over right here. If we see CMA right there, I'd like to click on that and start the process. So what is it going to do? So these two are different, and we're going to look through those differences when we get to reports. But for now, just go comparative analysis. And then you have to go through confirm facts. We're just going to say all of this information is correct for now. Oh, bedroom.
Lisa, I apologize. I have, Tisha, I apologize. I have a question again.
Yeah.
So I put in I was trying to follow along on MLS and I put in the address, I pulled it up, but then I don't see where you went for because your screen looks completely different.
Were you in MLS or were you in RPR?
I'm an MLS.
Okay, so you have to click through to RPR in order for it to look like mine.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. I'll just follow along then. Thank you.
Was that a 3-bedroom house now?
It is 3 bedrooms, yes.
Okay. So we're just going to confirm the facts. If we had more information, we might add that in as well. And then it's fine comps.
Okay, I have a quick question. Of
Yeah.
that you were just filling out, is that all that information coming from the prior MLS?
It comes from the MLS or tax records. So
Okay.
sometimes it won't pull from the MLS and it does pull through tax records. That's why a lot of times it doesn't have bedroom and bathroom count, because sometimes the tax records don't have that information. So when we're in here, so we see the house right here in the middle of the screen, if you see the White House. So what we want to do, I might already know that the neighbors just sold their house and I might have that property they want to add in. So you can take an MLS number or address and click here and add a known property. But I don't know any properties here. So I'm just going to go ahead and help and, get the information. So first, I'm going to look at it and it's waterfront. That looks like a large lot. And so we're going to see that here in a second when we go to run the comps about what's around it. Because if we're looking at it, and this is not always like 100% accurate, and yet it gives you a good representation of what it is. Do you know by chance, is that a deep water canal that can have a normal size boat in it?
It is. It's actually my house. I'm getting ready to list it. It'll be my first listing next month.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, when you asked for a volunteer, I'm like, oh, sure.
Let's price your house. Yeah, and this is great because even if you're doing the listing, so sometimes properties are hard to price. And so when we're doing this, keeping those, because occasionally a buyer's agent's going to be like, I just can't make these numbers make sense. Can you help me? And you can just send them over your comps if you did a good job on doing that. So we will go with, if we're pricing for a listing, I use a couple of different things. So I use active, pending, and closed. And I'm going to get into that once the results pull up so that I can tell you why I pull all of those different ones. And then off market date. So we're looking at 6 months. That is the max that we want to go back. Unless you have a very unique property, then it can justify, like if you can't find any comps, you're going to go back a year. And yet most appraisers go off of 6 months if it's not a very unique property, or they start going out further. So we're going to just stick with the 6 months and go from there. Beds and bath, we'll go from 2 to 4. We don't want anything larger than that. Bathrooms, 1 to 2. Living square footage, it gives you a wide range already. And depending on how many properties we'll see in a minute, we sometimes refine this even further down to be, closer to what the square footage actually is, what the lot size is. And yet you don't know until you run it to know that if there's 30 properties pop up, we're going to go back and refine this. There's a lot of activity there and we don't need all of that clutter. So then I'm just going to, and here's another one, year built. This is very important when you're dealing with newer construction, because an appraiser does look at the dates. So a 1970s house is not going to easily compare to a 2020 house, right? So there's different comparisons. So if we can find comps that are within the 10 years, 20 years of when the home was built, we want to pull those comps for sure. So let's just hit the search button right here and let's see what happens. Okay, so not a lot is happening here. So that gives us only a few things. And look real close. So if there's a circle, which there's not, oh, here's a circle all the way over here, pending for sale. And then we get recently closed are this 295 and this 275. And then closed, withdrawn, expired, or canceled is this 315 up here. So a few things to look at just right off the bat. So this is a fun one because it's waterfront. and we have to know waterfront. Because I'm looking at a few things and I'm not sure if it's true or not. Is this might, nope, definitely not a bridge there, so that's good. But if we see how long, I should say, does it take for somebody to get out to the Gulf from this one compared to this one? It might be this one's a little bit wider of a canal, so it might take them the same distance. So those are pretty comparable. And yet sometimes you're looking at waterfront and it's going to take them an hour to get out to the Gulf, and then somebody else taking them 15 minutes. That is definitely something to consider in the location. So let's look at these two. What do we got here? So this 295 one, we're probably definitely going to use that. We might adjust, but the proximity, and it does have a little bit wider canal here, but it gets narrow just like this one.
And
So
it's
we'll
shallow.
probably use that
It's
one.
super
This
shallow.
one's shallow.
Mhm.
Awesome. So what about back here?
So
How's
all
that
of-
water?
sorry, I'm pointing on my screen like you can see. So where it opens up, that's mostly sandbar.
Okay,
You see it open up. So mine,
right here.
you can actually, yeah, right there. It's hard at low tide to get through there.
Okay,
It's
so
really
that's
hard.
super important for us
Yeah.
all to know. Like, this is more complex than some of you guys might deal with in the beginning, but waterfront, we have so much of it here. You have to know what's happening. So knowing, asking the seller what the water's like, because hers is great, quick get out, it's deep water. Yet if you want to compare it to this 275 house, the seller might laugh at you if you're using that as a comp and haven't made any adjustments, because they're like, it's totally different water. This is boating water. This one, maybe it's a skip water. I don't know, so make sure you're aware of what the water situations are. And it's okay to ask the listing, ask the seller questions about the water. What size boat do you have? What size boat fits back there? Those types of questions are great. So when we're here, okay, so we got two. Let's see, we'll just click it. We're going to look at them and then we're going to determine why is this one 475. I don't know, but we're going to look, right? So I clicked all of them that were in the half-mile radius that we gave it. And so when we do that, we can add to comp list. So all of these are going right over here, if you see. And so this is what this basis number is going to go off of. So if we want to see, like this one, we didn't add to our list. Why not? It is only a third of a mile. That one looks good too. Why wasn't it on the map? Not sure. So let's go and look at a few of these properties, and I want to hear feedback because we saw the pictures, updated bathrooms, mostly an updated kitchen, on the water. So do you have a boat lift?
No boat lift, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
So the house that you're clicking on, that is a stick-built house versus the one that we're comparing, which is cement block. Does that, because the stick-built, that Rice Road is built in 1980, even though it's newer, the flood zone is VE. So we have a velocity issue for wind. How does that play into the CMAs?
So the CMAs, it really doesn't play in with the flood zone. And I say that, and yet it does, because you have a higher buyer pool that's going to buy, what are you in, AE?
No, I'm a VE. That's the
you're
problem.
in VE.
Yeah.
And what's Rice Road?
I can't remember. I think they're also VE.
Okay, yeah. So, and the reason I say that, so VE is high, and yet if we were comparing it to a house in an X flood zone, it's not really going to have a bearing on the CMA. And yet, we kind of all know that would a buyer, if the houses were comparable, and nothing on the water is going to be X, but unless it's built up, which we have a couple of those. But we know that a buyer would rather pay less for flood insurance than pay more. So that's going to come into effect, but on the stick built, some appraisers, they don't care. So I always try to think like an appraiser. And so I've sat through so many appraisal classes, and that's what I'm trying to make the value up, because that's really, we can all think what the house is valued at, the buyer, seller, us, and it really comes down to what is it going to appraise at. And unless you have the, magical cash buyer, which there's a lot of, nothing wrong with that, and they don't ask for an appraisal, we're going to have to deal with it. So that's kind of what I like to base mine off of. And so this house, let's see. So updated kitchen. It's different, right? So are we going to say that all of these beams are great? No. This over here, I think they have updated windows. This one's been fully renovated and it has a jacuzzi in the back. But, what I'm looking at, one second. What kind of, so they have an older dock that definitely probably needs to be redone. They have a new deck around their older hot tub. And I didn't see any pictures of seawall. So, okay, I can't compare that. But I feel like that's a riprap seawall, which does have less value than a concrete seawall, which I just want to note is funny because this is owned by Concrete Dealers of America. What was the name of the owner? I don't know. It was called something like that. So this one sold. It sold for a good price, but even RPR has it valued at higher than it closed at. So what were those factors? Unsure. But this, even though there's some differences, this looks like a comparable property in some forms. So let's look at this Lynch Lane. Let's see. Okay, so Lynch Lane. So what does this property have going for it? It's elevated. What does it not have going for it? Curb appeal, that's for sure. So if I'm comparing your house to this house, and I'm trying to see what the water looks like in the back, this almost looks like a mobile home on risers. So let's look at it. Let's see. So this is an interesting property. Needs a lot of work. Beams look good. And I'm pretty sure this is a mobile home on stilts. That's what this is.
So would they put that in a comp if it's technically a manufactured home on stilts?
If the appraiser is paying attention, he will not. So, I can't say that they wouldn't.
Okay.
They shouldn't. That's not, but it says that it's a single family home, not manufactured. Maybe if we dove into the tax records, we'd find more information. This is a terrible comp though. We would never use this. And how much did this sell for? This sold for $275. So this is making your house look amazing right now. Yeah, and it just closed. So that is, I'll just, it had a larger lot. It looked, no, and not as much seawall. So I would not use this comp whatsoever.
Okay.
If we remember looking back at what the original house looked like, it didn't look like this. This was not something that it was whatsoever. So we're just going to remove that from our list. So let's look. This one looks a little bit more like the front elevation in terms of the style of the home, which is great. We might be getting a little bit closer. So this is the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,900 square feet. And I'm not sure about this water frontage. So let's look at it. Let's have a double lot. Let's see. No, bring your boat. So that's their property line. They do have an interesting deck. There's seawall. So no boat lift, right? Yeah, no boat lift. They do have a large dock. Very old kitchen, obviously. Older floors. Trying to see, those do look like older windows as well. So not much has been upgraded in this house, if anything. Oh, those sliders looked newer. Oops. They have 100 photos in here. That is a lot. But you can see, so we kind of get the condition. It's a large house, and yet it needs a lot of updating. And so I would probably use this as a comp. And yet I'm going to make a few changes because the condition of this house is nowhere near, assumingly, the condition of your house. So these are things that we just want to go through and look, like see these older bathrooms right here. I mean, this is very old. So those are all things that you want to consider when looking at the houses. Yeah, we're not going to go through all those pictures. There's way too many for this. But RPR valued it at 334. This is more square footage, and yet it's a good comp, even though it's 2-bedroom, 2-bath. 1,900 square feet and only being 2 bedrooms. That's interesting. They probably have some other way that they could, you know, put something in another bedroom or something like that. Yeah, let's see. Oh, but they do have a newer roof. So that is a plus. It does not, a newer roof does not go into a CMA roof. There's no real value except for when you're selling and somebody you're comparing 2 houses. One has a newer roof, one does not.
Huh.
Which one are you going to go with if they're exactly the same? I want a newer roof. So there's no value. There's value, but there's no, when we're doing these, we don't really consider that it might be worse or better condition, but there's no number that we're going to put in for those. And then freshly painted, but it says, oh, newer AC, that could mean that it's 15 years old. I don't know what that means without pulling permits on it. So, and it does have those impact sliders on the back door. So I did mention newer sliders. So that's great. So this is a nice house, and yet it needs a lot of updating. So I would leave that one in, definitely for us to look through. And then let's see this driftwood. So this is 1,700 square feet. Let's look at it. Okay. So this one has a pool. So basically, when we run into houses, you would love to find all houses. If you're trying to comp a house with no pool, you'd love all of the comps that you use to have no pool. It makes it easier. Yet, that's not possible. You know, so you have to just kind of look. This does still already look like a comparable house, except for it has a pool in the backyard. That looks like, do you have a concrete or riprap on your back?
Concrete seawall.
Okay. So I believe either this is a decorative wall or it's riprap. Maybe we'll see when we get closer. It has lots of mangroves. Not that that really has any bearing on a CMA, but as somebody looking at a house, that has huge bearing, because if they go to cut those, they're going to get in lots of fines. You have to get permission and have to pay a lot of money to remove your mangroves. So that might be a deteriorating condition of this house for a new buyer coming in. So it looks like maybe similar. What do you think, kitchen wise?
Kitchen wise, yeah, that I would say that. Well, that I have granite. That looks like it might be Formica.
Yeah. Okay. So fireplace. I think your house had a fireplace too.
Yeah.
The bathrooms are not updated. Maybe the bedrooms are small. They have odd placement of furniture, so I can't tell. Oh, this one bathroom is more updated. Can't really tell how much yet. It is what it is. They have a nice pool in the backyard, so that's awesome. But their decking looks old, so condition out back is not great. And they do look like they have a nice floating dock there. But again, it's on a riprap wall. So when we're thinking about it, does that really make a difference? No. Yet we all know in a buyer's mind, it should make a difference. So this one's 1,700 square feet. It sold in November. So really this house is about to be removed because we're getting close to that 6-month date. So depending on if you know your client is going to be listing in, let's say, 2 months, don't even look at this house, right? Because we know that it's about to expire. But we do note that it was listed at 315 and it closed at 315. So back in November, that was still possible. Unlike today, I feel like. So it did get 100% of ask price. It's in a good area. Yeah. And accessing the deep water canal from your private dock. So this one, I'm just gonna, let's pull up the area real quick. Because I need to remember where it was located. So, yep, that was up here. And our house is right down here. So that's good to know. Then we can zoom in. I mean, it's valuing this home here. Wonder why it's valuing that home at 340. We should also look at that.
That's a double lot.
Oh, there you go.
Like that. So mine's considered a double lot, but that one's an even bigger double lot because you can build on it.
Yeah, it's
Where-
already subdivided, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've gone through, we've looked at some comps, and we think these, let's see, are these the ones we liked? Oh wait, we didn't look at Driftwood. Let's look at this one real quick so we can go through the process. Okay, so this is an elevated home.
Hmm.
It looks newer. What year is this built? Where's, oh, it did, well, let's see, sold in October. Elevator, boat lift, floating dock, concrete pad for RV. Okay, this house is not comparable to yours. And yet, so I did call an appraiser because selling a house, and it was basically, it was the only elevated home in the entire neighborhood. And so we asked the appraiser, so how do you, what's the difference? Like, how do you make adjustments for that? We all know that the elevated home, it'll have, you know, cheaper insurance. It'll probably last longer. You can make improvements to it, unlike, you know, a one level home that is, you know, needs the FEMA 50% rule. So we asked, what do you do? Nothing. He says, it's a little bit of a consideration, but there's no adjustment that you can make to it. So if we don't need to use an elevated home, I don't want to use an elevated home. And in this area, we don't need to, especially because this one is, we already said it, a double lot. It has boat lifts. It seems to have a lot. Let's look. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't, but it sounded like it did. So this is all upgraded.
Oh yeah.
Elevator, you know, all of those great things. But it's just a completely different house than the one that we're trying to comp. So that's why I would just say, no, let's not use it. We have 3 others that can make our case for us. So this one, I'm just gonna check the box, uncheck it. So now we have these 3 homes. And we kind of know this one's a little bit different, a lot different. The one has a pool, but we can at least gauge like, oh, look at what price range we're kind of going in here. We kind of see a story being told. So what I would then do is hit this button that says update valuation and close. And so you'll notice we didn't get to talk about it because there wasn't any options. Let me go back real quick. So when we did this, I said I wanted to see the actives, the pending, and the closed. And the reason I wanted to see all of those is because active is a listings competition, what's on the market. Pending means they got it right somehow. We don't know what that price is pending for, but they got it right enough that it's under contract. And then closed, it was a success, priced it right, and they might have got more, maybe less, but something happened that those people won. So generally, I like to see what those are so that I can put them on a list and show the seller, here's what we have. Here's who your competition is today, because sometimes it almost doesn't matter what closed. If you have competition on the market, we want to see where the gaps are there. So if you have somebody sitting there for 2 weeks at 315 and their house looks better than yours, you want to price it under them because it's about what they can get for the amount of money. So making sure you're aware of what the value is and, you know, pricing it just under where everybody else is. Unless they're okay with sitting on the market, then put it into 315 and see what happens. But basically that other house, if it looks better and is more value than yours, that other house is going to have to go away before yours is going to sell. That's pretty much how that works. So this one, we're just using closed, which is what I do for buyers. So if I had a buyer for this house, this is exactly what I would be doing the same way. I don't care about what's really active when I'm working with a buyer. I want to know what's sold because I want to know what it's going to appraise at. So that's kind of where, this could go either way if it's for a listing or a sale. I just add in to know what the competition is and to know where everybody else is at when doing the list side. So again, we're going to just go back to the update, valuation, and close. And let it do its thing. So then it pops out a number at you, right? So based on what we put in, and it's using their square footage, which I don't really like to use square footage when comping houses, but it helps it along. This is what the house would sell for. Yet we know, let's talk about the condition, right? So if we go into adjust comps, then it brings up our 3 comps next to our house. And so we can see which ones are different, where do they need to be changed a little bit. So this one, I want to say that it's in worse condition because it's very choppy and it was a quick flip job. You can tell that by the photos. So I'm just going to use my assumptions and move
We're
that
only
back.
there for maybe 8 weeks, if that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can tell those quick flip jobs that are not quality just by photo. So I'm just going to say that's, it's worse condition.
Mm-hmm.
And then which one was better? I think it was the driftwood. No.
No, the Yvette was better.
Yvette had the pool.
Yeah.
So this one is just a little bit better. That's what it is. And so let's update and see what it tells us now. Okay, so afterwards, no, did that wrong. Does the subject property? It was below. Sorry about that. Update. No, why is it doing that wrong? Oh, because I didn't move it back. 1 second. So the subject property is better. How does the subject compare to the property? So that one's worse. This one's better. Wait, how does the subject? Yeah, there. So update, and let's see where it puts us at. Oh, hold on. Cancel. So it now has us at 334. And so that can be an aggressive price, and it might not be something that I would feel comfortable using. I would probably go back in there and value it a little under that. And I say that because when we're looking at these, and this is right now, if my buyer's making an offer on that, I don't think 334 is going to be where it's at. I think it's more at the anywhere between 315 and 325. That again is without ever seeing this house and just knowing that, okay, here's some things that were said. So I think that it's, definitely have to go into houses when we're pricing them. If you're not going in them, that's okay to have the client walk you around the house with their phone so you can see everything. But just based on some old photos, some updated information, I would probably feel comfortable with it there. Could you price it what people like to do ahead of the market? Yes. And could you, by pricing it at 320, still probably get 334 in this market? Absolutely.
Tisha, there was no science to what you just did. Are we not trying to go in there and put any, like a lot of it was just speculation with moving that arrow up or down. Yep. Is there any science behind how much you're pulling the bar, where you were scrolling to the right or left? Is there anything where we can say, okay, they have a pool, so we're gonna, adjust it by 20 grand less than the other one? Is there anything like that with when you use RPR, or you're just, because what you pull the scroll bar up or down by could be way different than what I might have done or what someone else might do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is a section that you can go in and adjust all of those. The thing is, you have to know what those are. And so I'll show you. It's right here. When we're going to create our CMA, if we go to our sales analysis, sorry, hold on. I'll skip that stuff. So when we go through here, it's the same thing. It makes you do the same thing again. So this is much harder. And a lot of things that we do when we're doing a CMA is by eye. We have to know what the condition really looks like. We have to know, you know, what that water is going to bring. So if somebody's in a better location, it's remembering that. Again, all of these are very subjective. And yet, if you know the numbers, so I'll show you right here. If you know the numbers, you can absolutely go in and adjust the comps. So right here, you can go in and what is it going to take away? And you can put figures and facts right in here. So if you want to say that this house, this one has a pool and take $20,000 off, you can do that. Yet, is that what an appraiser is going to do?
So
not necessarily.
Mike had done a class on appraisals at some point, and he had sent out a document that gave some very generalized basics on how much different things were. I'm thinking that this would be the place that we could use those figures to try to get a little bit more scientific if you have that time.
Yes. So you can absolutely. So that sheet that he sent out is probably from Dean Davey, and it's a gem of a sheet because it does give you, but it also tells you that a pool on an $800,000 home is worth like $30,000.
Yeah.
So there's differences in what
subjectivity to it.
Yes, there's still subjectivity to it. Just like when we go in and I'm moving the bar up and down. This process right here, yes, I do it sometimes. And yet also it takes a long time, to be honest with you, like a long time to make sure that everything you have to do, all of the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the pools, what's the location, how much are we going to take off from that? And then you have to, it's going to show it to the sellers when you give them the report. So then it is also, you know, very subjective because they don't think the same thing as you. And then you can go in and actually weigh the comps. So if you have, let's just imagine you have the same exact floor plan as the neighboring house and they just sold, you can make sure that that comp, let's imagine this terrible house that was all chopped up. Let's go in here and say this house on Rice is exactly like mine. I might go in here and say, okay, so it's really, this is 75%. I want that to weigh 75%. And then maybe this is 12 and maybe 13. So now it's going to take this property into account over these properties. So again,
which method do you use? Which method do you use? Because you said the other one that you know, we were talking about a couple minutes ago was time consuming. Do you use this one where you do the comp weighing, or do you use the
oh no, I'm just meaning this whole process where you're putting in numbers, because you still go in and change the numbers and then you can weigh them as well. So you can do all of it. This is all one process.
Okay.
Yeah. So definitely, if you have the time, go in and play around with it. If you have the sheet from Mike, but you know, it'll even go for how much more is a tile roof over a shingle roof, right? What are the appliance differences? So if you want to go and analyze all of those things, then yes. However, that list is still very subjective because we know if you're looking at an $800,000 house, there's no way their pool costs $30,000 or whatever it had on that sheet. It costs you much more. Like it costs the seller, and not that the cost is comparison of what they paid for it, and yet it is in some effects when it has full pavers done, and then the house next door has nothing, and it's a in-ground pool that, you know, has no bird cage over it, no features, none of that. So it's still very subjective, when it comes to those terms, for sure. Mhm.
Okay.
So easy way is this one better or worse? Because that is also when I sit down with a client and I'm showing them what the comps are, I like to ask them, is this better or worse than your house? Because by doing that, maybe they've been inside that house and they can compare it based on the price. If they're saying, oh, my house is so much better than this Rice Road house. Okay, you're right. This is, I can see all of the value in that. If they come over here and say, my house is much better than this 2325 house that has a pool in the backyard, boat lift, new decking, new roof, whatever it is, then you're like, explain that to me, because I just want to make sure that I can also explain it to the buyer's agents when we're comparing these two houses.
Okay.
So getting a little bit in their mind of asking, which one do you think compares better, right? So we have these 3 properties. Where does your property fall? Have you been in any of them? And that's another thing when we're looking at these. So if you, let's just say it's your house that you want to sell, like we're doing right now. If you're selling your house, it is advantageous for you to go into every house that comes on the market around you, right? Because if you know what the condition was, you're seeing what the buyers saw and what the appraiser saw when it went to close. So knowing, instead of just going off of, bad pictures that people post on the MLS, you actually know what it was, because the people who are making judgments on that final price had to see it in person.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
When you go to have like a refinance done and they
Mhm.
have to appraise your house, they come through and they take pictures. Is that when the appraiser, is there kind of like an appraiser's database that's separate from like the MLS that they are also using to see the different upgrades or non-upgrades of some of these other properties in the neighborhood? No? Okay.
No. They are basing it off of the other appraiser who appraised that house.
Okay.
Like that's kind of, again, subjective. It's all based on what appraiser that you have coming out. And, some places, I think I forget, it's Lending Tree. It's one of the, online portals. They no longer even send appraisers out. They actually just send a person to take photos and they put it into a system and an algorithm does work. So again, subjective. That's why we just have to use our eyes and what do we see? What do we know? And the more knowledge that we have, even by going into those other houses, we know what that appraiser might have been thinking of, like, oh yeah, this has nice upgrades. Or wow, what was that appraiser thinking? This house is terrible. Why would he have appraised it at that? Which he might not have. They might have just paid the difference, right?
Yeah.
But they're now using closed sales. I mean, this is what they've always done, but they're using the closed sales to justify what the new price is going to be. So especially in this very fast market, we just have to keep up on that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So before we jump off here, let's imagine you could have, spent the time, gone through, changed all of these numbers in here and come up with a new number. So I'm just going to go update, validation, valuation, and close. So when we come here, you can get a copy of it. This is what I want to show you quickly, is create a report. So I do think that everyone should go through, look at the page numbers. This is a 28 pages, 81 pages, 1 page, 12 pages, 74 pages. If you were to sit down at a listing appointment or even to one of your buyers and you had all of this, like that many pages, nobody's going to pay any attention to it. So what I do like to do, if you see these arrows right here, find them. Which home facts do you need to present to your client? So I like to take my comps, not the comps that the system generates. I take my comps and then usually market conditions and market activity, and then I run a report. And then it's less than 20 pages, and then I usually delete some of those anyway. So it gives you a quick, concise report instead of what it started out is 74 pages. So do go through, because some people just take the whole report and they're overwhelmed with the information and they never want to use RPR again. So I like just going in, selecting only the reports that I want, which is sales comparison, property photos, because I want them to know what I saw when I was going through and comping their house, because it might be different. Like we just said, the bathrooms were updated, but maybe I didn't ask the right questions when I was pre-qualing this appointment and didn't know that it was any different than 3 years ago. So I definitely go through and click on that and then all of your comps so that you can see what it is. You run a report and then you can download it and have fun with it. So that is the way that I pull all of these. And it does save the workbooks, but it doesn't save them forever. So that's why I did say in the beginning to save them so that you can go back to them if any issues ever arise, or if you just need to show your buyer or seller, remember, this is what we talked about in the beginning, and this is the numbers that we based it on. So I like to download them and actually put them in my DocuSign account so that I always have them with the rest of my property files. So that was that version of it. So what kind of questions do you guys have? We have a few minutes left. Anything?
Can we do the CMA in the MLS?
So you can do a CMA in the MLS, yes. You want to see how to do that?
If you can. I mean, I don't know if it's easier here or there. I don't know the difference.
Well, I think you just don't get much data when you're doing it in the MLS, but yeah, let's do a quick one.
Thank you.
So if you go to search, let's go to quick. And then, oh, I forgot what the address was. Where are we at? 1 second. Let's take this address. Okay, so I'm going to put it right here because I want to go within half a mile. Those are the only things I care about. So if I put the address in, then I can, again, depending on what I am doing, pending, sold, I can see what all that data is going to be. I would also say I like to know that it's a single family. If it's a single family. If I'm only doing condos, I'm going to click condos or villas. I'm not going to click everything. So let's just see what results pull up. So a lot of solds in half a mile of where she is at. So let's look at it on the map real quick. So you can see, what are you going to eliminate? Because just pulling, some people put that in, do half a mile. And especially when you're doing waterfront, those don't work very well. So I might say, oh, well, let's go ahead and get rid, and let's draw, right? I know that these are waterfront. So where are we going? There we go. So I'm gonna, oh, well, let me delete it. Uh-oh, no. Let's clear map. There we go. Search. And only pick what the waterfront ones are, because these are all different waters. This house compares nothing to her house over here, not whatsoever. So which ones would you pick? And you can absolutely, this is half a mile, click all of these. Let's click all, and then do a quick CMA. And this is what I did mention in the beginning, that then it's just numbers on paper. And a lot of people don't understand them. So that's one way, quick CMA, where you're just selecting everything. You can also say, if I'm doing, I know that, what subdivision do you live in?
It's probably considered Hudson Beaches. I don't think it's any of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not, because it's literally like one street.
Okay. So I might go through and say, let's pick some of the properties, right? So I might say, I want to do this property and this property. Where are the others? Up here is one that I'm definitely going to do. You know, maybe that, well, maybe not that one looks off. But over here and mess with it and then run a quick CMA on it. I might also go back and say, and this is why I like RPR because it just puts the numbers in for you. I need it within 20% of what her square footage is. I need it to be, 2 to 3 bedrooms. I don't want to pull any 1 bedrooms in. So this, you can sit here and go through all of the different criteria. And that's why I just like RPR because it's just quicker. It already has the information in there when you're going to do a search of what, is most likely to happen. So if this is a 2-bedroom, it's going to have 2-bedroom already in there. And I don't have to put in here 2 to 3 bedrooms because I really don't even want a 4-bedroom if I don't have to have it. So it's just kind of going in. You can definitely mess with all of these different ones. But just know when you're pooling like square footage, if you want to stay within 15 to 20% of what the subject property is. The same thing with bedrooms. We would rather have, something that's a 2 or 3 bedroom than, a 1-bedroom or a 5-bedroom house in comparison. So you do have to weed those out or put in your criteria because it's just, nothing's going to really compare and add up. And then it's going to be even more subjective. So if you can find properties that are like from the very beginning, those are the ones that you want to go with for sure. So we don't have time to go through a full comp of this because we are out of time, but does that give you a little bit of an answer to your question of how to do those?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have anything before we jump off of here?
I see you're recording this. Can you email us the video or where do we find that at?
So I don't know what Kevin does with the video.
Okay.
And yet I can tell him, that you guys want a copy of it.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, if that's it, guys, it was great with you guys all day. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will let Kevin know that you guys would like the video, and maybe he will email that to you or post a link to where to find it out. Okay. Bye, guys.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.